The day Everett Callahan walked out of the company he had helped build, nobody tried to stop him. For 5 straight years, his name had sat at the top of the sales board, his numbers had rescued failing quarters, and his dedication had earned him the respect of nearly everyone in the building. Yet when the chairman finally announced a major promotion, Everett watched the position he had worked toward for years go to the chairman's daughter, a young woman who had spent only months learning the business. Everett simply placed his resignation letter on the desk, looked at the man who had once promised him that hard work would always matter, and quietly walked away. What nobody knew was that Everett wasn't leaving because he had stopped caring. He was leaving because something inside him had finally broken. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share this story, and subscribe to our channel, because sometimes the person who walks away is not giving up, sometimes they are finally choosing themselves. Everett had never expected his life to become complicated. 5 years earlier, he had been a promising sales representative at Bellmont Industrial Solutions, a respected American company that supplied equipment and technology to manufacturing businesses across the country. He was not the loudest man in the office, nor was he the kind who filled meetings with impressive speeches. Everett was quiet, disciplined, and observant. He remembered clients' birthdays, knew which customers were struggling with cash flow, and never pressured someone into buying something they did not need. His philosophy was simple: earn trust first, and the sale would follow. That philosophy had made him the company's top seller 5 years in a row. But behind every successful quarterly report was a much more personal reason for Everett's determination. He was raising his 9-year-old daughter, Maisie, alone. Maisie had been the center of Everett's world since her mother left when the little girl was only 3. Everett never spoke bitterly about her mother, even when life became difficult. He simply focused on giving Maisie stability. He packed lunches before sunrise, attended school meetings whenever he could, helped with homework after exhausting days, and kept a framed photograph of his daughter beside his computer. It reminded him why he was willing to work through rejection, long meetings, missed promotions, and countless weekends. He wanted Maisie to grow up believing that circumstances did not determine a person's worth. He wanted her to see that integrity could survive disappointment. For years, Everett believed the company understood that. Chairman Wallace Mercer often praised him publicly and described him as the backbone of the sales division. Whenever a major client was lost, Everett was the person sent to repair the relationship. Whenever a new employee needed guidance, Everett trained them. Whenever the company faced a difficult quarter, Everett found a way to bring in enough business to keep everyone calm. Quietly, he began to believe that his next step would be obvious. The position of regional sales director was expected to open, and everyone in the office assumed Everett would receive it. He had earned the numbers, the experience, and the trust of the team. Then Wallace made an announcement that changed everything. Standing before the sales department on a bright Monday morning, the chairman introduced his daughter, Celeste Mercer, as the company's new regional sales director. Celeste was intelligent, polished, and ambitious, but she had only recently returned to the company after working elsewhere for a short time. She had never managed a sales team and had never handled the kind of difficult clients Everett regularly dealt with. Still, the promotion was presented as a strategic leadership decision. Everett sat silently while the room applauded. He did not complain. He did not embarrass Celeste. He did not ask Wallace why 5 years of results apparently meant less than a family connection. He simply stared at the photograph of Maisie on his desk and felt a painful emptiness settle inside him. That afternoon, he stayed late finishing a client proposal. When the office became quiet, he opened a blank document and typed his resignation letter. The next morning, Everett placed it on Wallace's desk. The chairman looked surprised and immediately tried to persuade him to reconsider, offering a modest raise and promising that more opportunities would come. Everett listened respectfully, then explained that money was not the issue. He had spent years proving what he could do, and he could no longer remain somewhere that had shown him his effort had a ceiling he could never break through. He thanked Wallace for the opportunities, shook his hand, and left. That decision frightened him more than he admitted. For the first time in years, Everett had no company badge, no guaranteed salary, and no clear plan. His savings could cover the bills for several months, but raising a child meant uncertainty felt heavier than usual. There were moments when he wondered whether pride had made him reckless. Yet every afternoon when Maisie returned from school, she found her father at home waiting for her. Everett helped her with her science project, attended her school presentations, and discovered pieces of her childhood he had almost missed because of work. Slowly, he began building something new. Using his knowledge of the industry, Everett started a small consulting business from a modest rented office. Instead of selling equipment directly, he helped small manufacturers negotiate better contracts and improve their sales strategies. He had no prestigious title anymore, but he had something far more valuable: the trust of people who knew his character. His first clients came because former customers recommended him. Then more followed. Within months, Everett's little consulting firm became surprisingly successful. But he never forgot the people who had helped him when he was uncertain. He hired 2 experienced workers who had been laid off from other companies and trained them patiently. He offered flexible hours to employees caring for children. When one struggling client could not afford his full fee, Everett quietly reduced it. He had discovered that success felt different when he was no longer chasing approval. Meanwhile, Bellmont Industrial Solutions began experiencing problems. Celeste worked hard, but leadership was not as easy as she had expected. She had been promoted because of her surname, but she soon discovered that a title could not manufacture relationships. Several important clients became frustrated with the sales department. Experienced employees stopped offering suggestions because they felt their opinions were ignored. Quarterly numbers began slipping. Wallace defended his daughter publicly, but privately he grew worried. Then one of Bellmont's largest customers announced that it was considering moving its entire contract to another supplier. The account had once belonged to Everett. Wallace immediately realized how much knowledge had walked out the door with him. Celeste reviewed the client history and found hundreds of pages of notes, reports, and proposals. But none of them explained what Everett had understood instinctively: the customer did not simply want lower prices. They wanted someone who would listen when their business was struggling. Celeste tried to repair the relationship, but the client refused. One afternoon, Wallace received an unexpected letter from Everett's consulting firm. Everett was representing another company that had become interested in the same contract. For the first time, Wallace saw the consequences of his decision clearly. Everett was no longer an employee waiting for recognition. He was now a competitor. Yet Everett did not attack Bellmont. He presented his proposal honestly and professionally. He did not mention Wallace's favoritism. He did not insult Celeste. He simply demonstrated that his company could solve the customer's problems. Everett won the contract. The news devastated Bellmont. But something unexpected happened afterward. Instead of celebrating the victory, Everett visited Wallace. He found the chairman sitting alone in his office, looking older than Everett remembered. The powerful executive who once seemed untouchable now looked like a father confronting the consequences of his own mistake. Wallace expected Everett to demand an apology. Instead, Everett told him that he had learned something during the past year. He had spent too much of his life measuring his worth through other people's recognition. Losing the promotion had hurt deeply, but it had forced him to discover that his value did not disappear when someone failed to acknowledge it. Wallace struggled to respond. Then he admitted the truth. He had promoted Celeste because he was afraid that if he did not give his daughter an opportunity, she would never have one. He had convinced himself that Everett would understand because Everett was dependable. In doing so, he had mistaken loyalty for permission to be unfair. For the first time, Wallace apologized without defending himself. Everett accepted the apology. But the most surprising moment came when Celeste entered the office. She had overheard enough to understand what had happened. Her face carried embarrassment, but also something deeper. She admitted that the promotion had made her feel successful for the wrong reason. She had spent the past year trying to prove that she deserved the position, but eventually realized she had been standing in a place someone else had earned. She told Everett she was sorry. Everett looked at her for a long moment. Then he told her that he did not want her to spend the rest of her life feeling guilty for a decision she had not made. He offered her something neither of them expected: mentorship. Not because Wallace was the chairman. Not because Bellmont needed help. Because Everett knew what it felt like to be given a chance too late, and he did not want another person to waste years carrying shame. Celeste accepted. Over the following months, Everett became an outside advisor to Bellmont while maintaining his own company. He taught Celeste how to listen before negotiating, how to build trust with difficult clients, and how to recognize talent without letting personal relationships interfere with fairness. The transformation was gradual. Celeste became a better leader. Wallace changed the company's promotion policies. And Everett's consulting business continued to grow. But the greatest change happened at home. One afternoon, Everett attended Maisie's school presentation. She stood before her class holding a small handmade poster about the people who inspired her. When she reached the final section, she pointed toward her father sitting in the audience. She described him as the person who taught her that being successful did not mean being the richest, strongest, or most important person in the room. It meant being the kind of person who could lose something and still choose not to become bitter. Everett struggled to hold back tears. He suddenly realized that the year he had once considered the worst year of his life had actually given him something no promotion could have provided. Time. Purpose. Freedom. And a daughter who had watched her father choose dignity without sacrificing kindness. A year after Everett's resignation, Wallace invited him to Bellmont's annual employee gathering. Everett arrived as an independent business owner, not an employee. As he entered the room, he noticed something that made him stop. On the company's recognition wall, there was a new plaque honoring employees who demonstrated integrity, mentorship, and service to others. The award was named after Everett. He stared at it in silence. Wallace approached him and explained that the company had changed its entire promotion system after Everett left. Promotions were now based on performance, leadership, and documented qualifications rather than family relationships or personal influence. Wallace said the company had learned an expensive lesson. Everett smiled. He did not need the plaque. But he appreciated what it represented. Later that afternoon, Celeste approached him with a folder containing the company's latest sales results. She had become the department's strongest performer since taking the position. She was not the strongest because she was Wallace's daughter anymore. She was strong because she had finally learned how to lead. Everett congratulated her. Celeste thanked him. There was no resentment between them now. Only understanding. As Everett walked out of the building that afternoon, sunlight stretched across the pavement, and he remembered the day he had left with nothing but a resignation letter and a wounded heart. He had believed he was walking away from his future. He had been wrong. Sometimes a closed door is not punishment. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes rejection forces us to stop asking people to recognize our worth and start recognizing it ourselves. Everett had lost a promotion, but he gained a life. Wallace had lost his best employee, but he gained humility. Celeste had inherited a position, but eventually earned the leadership she once received unfairly. And Maisie had gained a father who was finally present for the moments that mattered. Before we reach the final moment, take a second to think about this story and leave a meaningful comment telling us what lesson touched you most. Was it Everett's ability to forgive, Wallace's willingness to admit his mistake, or Celeste's courage to grow beyond an unfair advantage? Your words may encourage someone else who is quietly struggling with rejection right now. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Everett never became bitter about the promotion he lost. Years later, when people asked him what changed his life, he never talked about the contract he won or the company he built. He simply remembered the morning he placed that resignation letter on Wallace's desk and chose to leave without anger. Because sometimes the greatest promotion life can give you is not a higher position. It is the chance to become a better version of yourself. And sometimes the person who appears to have lost everything is actually the one who has finally found everything that matters.